Good morning, United Kingdom. Good morning, everybody, to the live drive time session with Lakhi Singh, the property fixer, from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. We have today, hopefully, I think he is still flying in by private jet, Neuro Singh Johal, who's just coming back from a live stage show in Los Angeles, I think. We have Lakhi Singh, who also is coming back from some show in Berkeley Square. So he's had a live, I think there's a live Berkeley Square is he here? No, he's not here. He turned up. Right, okay. So he's I think he was performing on X Factor in Berkeley Square, Lakhi Singh, and apparently Simon Powell told him maybe not singing Lakhi Singh this year. Anyhow, Lakhi Singh, good morning. The property fixer, how are you doing?
Good morning, how are we doing?
Yeah, how are you doing?
I'm all right. How you doing?
I'm doing well. So what's the weather like in United Kingdom, Lakhi Singh?
The weather's not too bad today. It's quite looks like quite sunny in the morning, not raining, which is nice.
That's good. So you can scratch deep in this weather, I bet you. Yeah?
Yeah, I love scratching deep.
Is that right? Scratching deep, yes. So we've got a guest today, our famous VVIP, Mr. Neuro Singh Johal, who's, I think, flying in by private jet this morning from his bedroom. So hopefully, if he gets in on time, we'll get him into the studio and we will have him on the drive time. For now, the saying of the week is very difficult to change those people who don't know how to change their mindset, or something like that. And a question regarding bridging finance, Lakhi, and that is, can bridge finance save my personal property from LPA receivers? Now that's a bit of a catch-22 question, because I know you know a bit more about LPA receivers and what they can and cannot do. So we'll ask you later to explain why LPA receivers really can't do anything to a residential property, and nobody thinks who they can is misguided. Anyhow, so mindsets. So you can't really do anything for anybody who's not willing to change their mental position, Lakhi. What do you say to that? What's your taking on it? Have you changed your mental set in the past 10, 15 years? Or are you still the same person you were 10, 15, 20 years ago? Are you now a new person where it comes to picking up on your weaknesses, on your strengths? What is it? Are you somebody who is able to change your mind? Or are you those type of persons who can't change their mind and therefore it's impossible to change you? And if, as you said yesterday, the gut is everything, because a good gut is a good mind, is a good body. So is it important that we know whether we can change your mind or your gut? And what is it that's in your gut now that we don't know about that's going to change your mind? Or have you got everything that was in your gut yesterday still in your gut now? Yes, Lakhi, your comments.
Yeah, I think it's not an easy thing to be changing your mind, because mind is something that a lot of people don't think that they can change. They just think the mind is as it is. So they may not realize the type of influences the mind can have to be able to adjust to change.
Mm-hmm.
So majority of people
Yeah.
can't necessarily change their thinking, their mind, because their mind is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
the only way you can change your mind is by constantly, continuously wanting to push your mind to the next level. And
Yeah.
if you've got that impetus, then
Mm-hmm.
some of the most successful people in the world is because they're successful because they've been able to change their mindset, and then everything else has
Okay.
flowed from there. So I would say
Mm-hmm.
it's possible. So your success is determined by your mindset. And
Mm-hmm.
with certain people, they've already may have a very good mind. They don't need to change their mind
Yeah.
or improve it. So they just need to do the basics. But if you want to optimize your mind and improve it, then you've got to work at it. So, for example, as an example, I try to push myself every day in every way. And one of the things I tend to do is I watch a lot of quiz type programs, just to sort of test my memory and ability to remember things. So the more you push
Okay.
your neurology, the more links you create, the more able you are to then remember facts. The other thing, like you said, is um, you need to keep your energy at a certain level to be attracting the right type of things in your life. So if
Yeah.
you're always downbeat, negative, and
Mm-hmm.
everything's a problem, the
Mm-hmm.
reality is that nothing's ever going to be working for you. You're always going to find problems.
Yeah.
So there's one person there's a few people I talk to, and they say, "Oh, I need to be making money. I need to be making money. Help me. Give me some money, or can we do a deal?" So I said, "Look, before we even start, you're already working on the wrong premise. You need to be thinking on a more of an abundant mindset. You can't be thinking, I need money, because then you're already thinking in scarcity. So you've got to
Mm-hmm.
be thinking in abundance. And if you're not, you're already setting yourself up to fail."
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So
In
that's
abundance.
my two
Okay.
pennies worth.
Thinking in
I'm not
abundance.
an
I
expert
understand. I mean,
but I might change my mind in a minute.
okay. So how do you relate that to your gut then? Are you changing what's in your gut first? Have you got an understanding of what's in your gut? Can you tell us what's in your gut now?
I think if you can change your gut to optimize it, then what happens is that you know really your vibration. So if you're eating a lot of fatty foods, you're eating lots of processed foods, eating a lot of greasy food, and that if that's in my gut now, I'd probably be asleep by now. Wouldn't be able to wake up because my body would be far too tired to be able to even wake up in the morning on time. I'd probably want
Mm-hmm.
to sleep quite a lot. So
Mm-hmm.
a lot of Asian food like paranthas and samosas and pakoras and a lot of food like this. It
Yeah.
contains a lot of fatty foods, which is really bad for diabetes and other illnesses, blood pressure, cholesterol. So just have to be very careful, not only from a health point of view, but also from a clarity of mind point of view. So I'm just wondering, how do you actually
Mm-hmm.
connect with God or meditate? If you haven't really got a clear mind, your brain is working on a negative thought pattern on a quite low frequency.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
The only way I think you can improve your frequency, your level of thinking, is when your energy is quite high, because we're all, we have like a, let's just say, a pull, and you can actually manifest a lot of things in your life by just simply improving your energy levels.
Okay, so the energy levels can be improved, and again, by changing the diet, and then the diet affects the mind, and the mind affects the body. Is that the way you've got it worked out?
Also to prove this point, I had a long chat with a lady called Deborah Sophia Magdalene yesterday from Burnley, who's an expert in frequencies, and she's got a type of scanner that scans really your level of vibration, and she can scan that in relation to nearly any of your key functions, your eyes, your heart, your lungs, your liver, your colon. So you can work out really whether they are working at the optimum level. So whether she would do a diet plan for you, or whether she would actually use her machine to help you improve her vibrations, are the type of things that I had a quite a detailed discussion with her about. Hence, I think you know, anybody who actually wants to improve their vibration and improve their health and their well-being will then be able to be more effective in their decision making, and they're not really going to get caught up with anything that's a low vibration, such as all the overspill of emotion over COVID-19. It's going to literally make them feel vulnerable, make them feel like they're problems. But the reality is that.
So what you're saying is we are but vibrators, different sizes, obviously.
You can call it what you like, but the vibrational energy, the energy that you vibrate at, the level of energy that you vibrate at, is critical to your well-being. Then business and making money and success in that field is somewhat secondary. But if you're already in a very good mental state of mind, in a very healthy state of mind, your business is going to be very healthy, and your whatever employment you're seeking, or your specialism that you have, or the consultants you have, are all going to be potentially optimized, because you'll be the right person for that job, because you're going to be bringing a lot more energy, enthusiasm, passion, as well as out of the box thinking. All of these things are going to be more prevalent in your nature. Yeah.
Excellent. So basically, you're best if you're a vibrator. That's what you're basically saying.
That's right. I think you're going to be a good vibrator that will bring you bring you ultimate success.
Joy.
Vibrational energy.
Bring you joy.
A lot of people don't really know what that means. Their mind may be somewhere else, but the reality is that it's comes down to feeling. The feeling of wellness is very important.
Okay, so you got Sajid Patel, Amar Ali, Meena, Smith, say Carolyn, I think. Is it Williams? And we've got a new person, a Carol as well, who says good morning and hi to everybody this morning. Yeah, so we are vibrators. Morning, yes. So, Lakhi Singh, your input is that you are a vibrator, a 6'4" vibrator, and it depends on where someone uses you that you will have your optimum. That's what you're basically saying. Is that right?
I think vibrator might mean something else to the audience. I think it's probably better to keep it a family show rather than use the wrong language. So can I correct you there?
I know, if you're okay, so I know what I meant to say is,
can you try not to try and bring the conversation down to the gutter because it's
Well,
it's a family show.
talking of your
show,
gut.
so
That's
can
right.
you refrain from doing that, please?
Yeah, but you said you have to vibrate.
You like
So
getting
I'm just
told off because you're a bit of a naughty boy, yeah? I think you like
literally,
to get
I'm
told off
taking
for
a
being a naughty boy.
literal. Yeah,
I think you like to
taking a
get told off
literal.
for being a naughty boy. So can you
Yeah.
refrain from
Okay.
actually doing that again? Yeah?
Okay. So, well, what I meant to say
I don't
is
want to repeat
every
myself
part.
again. So can you refrain from doing that, please?
Yes. So every part of your body is a vibrator. I think that's the way to put it. Yes. And as long as every
I'm going to
part of
have to
your
leave the show if you're going to continue. I think let's try and keep
yes.
it professional.
Right. Okay. So every part of your body vibrate. That's probably the actual accurate way of trying to interpret what you said. Every part of your body vibrates, and because it vibrates, it gives you good health. And talking about the gut, uh, if your gut is vibrating, it ensures that you're mentally sound as well. That's what you're saying. Yes.
Yeah,
Talking
thank you.
about mindsets. So, what is it in the gut that's going to change your mindset about doing things that you're naturally always leaving off the table or not too good at or somewhat afraid to do? How do you change that mindset?
Well, if you've got good health and you've got a good mind, you're feeling in your element, then there's nothing stopping you from doing anything really. But I think it's important that you do the basics first. But if they're not being done, you'll find that everything seems to, a lot of things will feel like they're problems that are not really there. And I think it's simple
Right.
as that.
Okay. My question to you is again, feeling healthy, feeling well, perfectly agree with that. But are there things that you do then, Lakhi Singh, that you weren't doing before then? For example, could be taking the dog out for a walk that you weren't doing before because your mental condition was reflected by your gut and your gut having heavy foods in it, like you said, Asian foods, was affecting your ability to do things that you should have been doing, but you hadn't been doing. That's the question.
Well, what happens is once you start down the line of taking the easy path of not doing things, so I'd certainly be doing a lot more, maybe sleeping, probably leaving house chores, not really getting them done, probably not really organizing my week quite in the same way. Probably my communication probably wouldn't be as good. Somebody rings me, I'm sort of forget because I get a lot of phone calls. May not feel like the energy to actually be picking up the phone 24/7, which I normally do. So I think whilst your energy changes or you feel better, you have the more of the enthusiasm, have more ability to want to be doing things because a lot of the practicality actually becomes simpler in doing things. It doesn't seem as a chore or a task or something that you're going to make it a problem in your head. So yeah, certainly, if I wasn't taking the dog for a walk, I am actually now taking the dog for a walk.
Okay. And right, so the question is, we've got a technical question, and that is, does bridging help if I'm going to try and save myself from the LPA receivers on my residential property? Does that make sense? Is that a correct statement? Can you save yourself from an LPA receiver?
Well, first of all, that's a contradiction in terms because LPA receivers comes under the Landlord and Property Act 1925, I believe, and they are only appointed for buy-to-let or commercial assets. So they're not appointed by the bank in relation to residential houses in which people live in. So that's the first point. So technically, that's incorrect, first of all. So yeah, no, LPA receivers can't be appointed on your house. And if they are, it's probably because you've got yourself a buy-to-let mortgage and you're living in your house. And then, yes, and you shouldn't really be living in your house. You bought yourself a commercial mortgage. You're probably thinking, I'm going to rent the property out. You had a change of circumstances, decide to live in the house, but didn't notify the bank is probably the only way that I can see it happening. And then if you go into arrears, if you're living in the house, but it's a buy-to-let mortgage, technically you shouldn't really be living in there. You should need to notify the bank to make them aware that it's a residential property now, and they'll probably change the rates accordingly. Normally the residential mortgage rates are lower, but they tend to be a bit sometimes hesitant in changing it. So you need to actually probably give them the correct information for them to decide. But let's just say if you haven't told them, yeah, then what can happen is that if you don't pay your mortgage, have a missed payment, or you're in arrears, or you have a default, or a CCJ, or something the bank's not happy with because you're contravening their contract that you had with them for the buy-to-let mortgage, then they're within their rights to appoint LPA receivers, which is usually a firm of surveyors or estate agents, which can literally come and change your locks, and will then want to collect. They'll want to collect the rent from you and get the money coming in to themselves directly, and they'll also have the power of sale. So if you are living in there, then that's actually going to be even a bigger problem, because you've contravened the contract that you had with them. So you're going to be in quite a loose wicket to be doing that.
Okay, so if you have got a property and you're living in it and it's a commercial property, that's what you're saying, it's probably better for you to let the bank know so they can change your mortgage. But what if changing your mortgage is going to require you putting money in, and they're going to say, well, you don't have the right loan to value, the property value has crashed? What do you do then?
I think that when you come and talk to Lakhi Singh, the property fixer, because if your property values crash or negative equity, it's going to be quite a difficult situation, because the bank's got you over a barrel. So technically, they could actually enforce the contract the way that they want. So whatever you say, whatever you do, would be meaningless, because they can just literally do whatever the Landlord and Property Act 1925 allows them to do, which is to literally take your property over and get you to pay them the rent if you're the tenant. Obviously, if you're living in there, then they could probably change the locks and evict you and sell the property, because they've got the power of sale. So they're going to be very clinical about it. And in this market, as the situation becomes more prevalent, the falling market, you're going to find that this situation is going to become fairly common. Yeah.
Okay. So what can you do then to prove that you're living in the property then, Lakhi Singh? If you are living in the property and you want the bank to be assured that you're living in this property and you're not really letting it out as a commercial entity, even if the mortgage is, what documents are there that you can use to prove to the bank that you are living there?
You could show them your council, basically the council bills and your utility bills. They are proof, but if you can actually backdate them and show them the backdated time, if you've been in there for, let's say, 10 years and you got backdated bills, but they can also check themselves. So you can't really hide anything. Actually, literally ring the council and get the information themselves. It'll be on public record.
Yeah. So that's one way of protecting yourself in case you're living in a buy-to-let that you're using as a house. Otherwise, there's no reason that an LPA receiver should be appointed on a residential property. Is that what you're saying, Lakhi Singh?
Yeah, the only time the LPA is being appointed is in the circumstances where you're, if it's a residential property, that's the only time that I think they can probably appoint receivers. But even then, it doesn't stop them appointing receivers because you're living in there, because you've contravened the contract. So what normally happens?
So every contract has a clause, the LPA receiver clause in it. Is that what you're saying?
No, what I'm saying is that if you are living in a normal residential property, it's not a buy-to-let mortgage or a commercial mortgage, then the LPA receiver clause is not in the contract. So what happens with that is that's highly regulated by the FCA, the Financial Conduct Authority, and banks aren't allowed to appoint receivers on properties because they can do that at a drop of a hat. In a couple of days, they can appoint receivers. So what they have to do is they have to be seen to be reasonable in giving you an opportunity to, keep up with any arrears or missed payments or defaults. And if they find that you're not keeping up to some sort of payment plan you've agreed with them, then they're perfectly right to take your property, try to repossess your property by going to court and bring you in for a court hearing. So typically you would have at least 1 or 2, maybe 3 court hearings at most before it gets repossession mode, providing you've got legitimate evidence to show that you have a plan of action to be able to deal with the problem. But on day one in the first court hearing, if you haven't got a plan of action to solve the problem, then they're more likely to come after you and actually be able to repossess the property. So, for example, if you're unemployed, you've got no income, and your property's been in arrears for about 2 years, the likelihood of you getting away with not being repossessed is very low. Whereas if you've recently found yourself a job, even though it's been arrears by 2 years, you can sort of got a contract, you've got proofs that you've got enough money coming in about 2 or 3 months, and then you've come together with some sort of a payment plan, and you say, look, I'm happy to pay down X amount of money from the arrears from my income or from something I've borrowed from family, and I'm actually happy to make the payment. I've actually made the payment today already of £1,000. These sort of things go a long way in terms of proving to the judge that you're doing something. But even still, there's no guarantees, because the judge could have easily woken up that morning, had an argument with his, she or he would have argument with his other half last night, and then in the morning at the hearing, they could actually technically easily turn on you because they've had a bad day. So it's not all plain sailing. I would just say avoid getting into arrears, avoid getting into negative equity. Ideally speaking, speak to us. We'll work out really how to solve these sort of problems before they come to a head.
Okay, so Carolyn says, good point made, I think, about your earlier points about your health. We have Sonia, who's just joined us, says hi, coming slightly late this morning. Right, so Lakhi Singh, 2 weeks off from the elections, and where do you think everything is going? Do you think it's going to be Mr. Trump, or do you think it's going to be a new president for America? Is there going to be a turnaround What's going to happen? What's on the horizon? What do you predict as being the major incident that's going to either fix the world economy or push it over the edge?
I think I'm not an expert on global politics, but I would say, if I was hazard to guess, I would say that Donald Trump will definitely come back in. He's got a lot of clever strategies, let's just say, which would mean that he comes back in, even though he's running lower in the ratings at the moment. But he's a lot more able to pull strings, and he'll use every trick in the book to actually get himself in. So my bad guess is that yeah, he'll definitely be in. And what will that mean to the global economy? Just means that I think the global economy is in need of a correction. So the COVID-19 as a speed tracked the global correction of sorts, so that if I was to hazard a guess again, like I said, I'm no expert, everything's going to become gold backed. So if it becomes a gold backed type currency, it's the countries that are holding the most gold are going to be the ones that are going to be running the show. So that's my sort of take on it. So the UK, the USA, they are actually in for a major correction anyway. So that correction is bound to happen, and that's going to happen with the rise in interest rates. And so I think anybody that's involved in property or business now, I encourage you to get yourself in a fixed and basically consolidate what you're doing, and just ensure that if you can sell and have cash in your hand, cash is king in this market. So those would be my key pointers.
Excellent. Okay, so that's on where things are going. So with regards to the business world in the United Kingdom, I know you speak more about property, where your knowledge base is. What and how do you help businesses? What is it you're doing on the business side that helps businesses in this environment to either recover or turn around or look for finance? Do you do commercial lending or finance for businesses?
Yes, we do. We've got a number of clients that have come to us that are looking for something called CBILS and bounce back loan, and as well as there's a lot of businesses that have got assets, got their personal assets, but they've got a business that's still got potential, but they just need temporary cash flow. They may have actually used up their CBILS or their bounce back, but that's not enough to be able to do the things they need to do in terms of investment. So a lot of those type of businesses, we can help them to raise funds against either their asset or the turnover of their business. But we've got 6 or 7 different strategies to be able to raise short-term funds for them very quickly. Some of them we will also be able to get are able to get personal loans, which they can go and get from certain organizations, which are available on the market. So yeah, we're pretty comprehensive in terms of every type of lending option that's on the market, and anything that's not commonly known in the market, we also have access to. We have a lot of private lenders that will facilitate deals as well, or come up with more of a creative, tailored or boutique type solution for them. Yeah.
Okay. So, what type of common faults or requirements are you seeing in the business community then, Lakhi? What is it that you've got? And I think they're saying this time the lockdown is going to be a bit more permanent, so it's not going to be a temporary one. Is that correct? What does the UK economy about it say?
Yeah, I think the lockdown looks a lot more aggressive this time in terms of the rules and the impact. So I'm going to do a bit of reading about what you can and can't do before I leave the house this morning. So you're not, I think as of today or tomorrow, I think it is you're not allowed to even visit family members. So you can't even do more than, so if you've got a household, it's not even actually 6 people, you're not even allowed to visit anybody because they're on a very high alert. But I'm going to check out all the facts and figures for all of that, so I can be a bit more educated about it, because the rules keep on changing every other day, and it's different rules and
where are you checking the rules from, Lakhi Singh? Which is it, a governmental website? Where is it? The local council?
The rules are coming out on news every morning pretty much anyway. So if I watch that for a few minutes, I usually say this is what you need to do. But I'm just going to type in BBC and type in COVID-19 regs, and then everything should be on there, but the 3 or 4 key prominent things that you're going to be focusing on. So as I do a lot of high net client meetings, attend sort of let's say low key events, it's important that we basically follow the rules to the T, and make sure that we're setting a good example for the alternative property business solutions community, and making sure that we don't actually help with the spread of a virus. So we probably want to go the extra mile to make sure we're within the rules. But at the same time, because of the type of work we're doing, we're helping a lot of people that are losing their houses. I sort of see the work we're doing as a key worker, as an essential service. So we're dealing with a couple of charity organizations at the moment as well, having quite a lot of complex issues around their assets. We're dealing with individuals who thought they could get money on bridges, second bridge finance, to get money very quickly, and a second charge for refurbishments. But the whole infrastructure for lending now is a completely new, it's a complete new, let's just say, structure. Things aren't really going to be working as they've been working. So anybody out there looking for funding, for bridging funding, they're going to need to work with somebody who's creative, but who's also connected at high net, mid net, and a startup type level. Can't really afford to be going to anybody that's on a traditional level doing bridging, because they're going to have limited solutions to solving their problems.
Okay, so you're going to, you're saying it's going to get tight, and it's going to get tighter in terms of liquidity in the market. So when do you see this bounce back out of the bottoming out of what's happening? And this is all centered around COVID. It's not anything to do with the economy or demand and supply. It is literally virus backed. Is that correct, Lakhi?
Yeah, it's literally down to the pandemic. It's not based upon any business logic or strategic growth in the economy or anything like that. It's all down to COVID-19 is the dog, and the populace is the tail.
Okay, so the dog is wagging the tail, or the tail is wagging the dog?
The dog is wagging the tail.
Okay, great. So, so give us something else for us to be considering then. With people who've got property and equity and assets and stuff, if they're losing value, how can they protect that value? Is there anything they can do? Can they look to put some wraparound, ring fence the money, put it into some special offshore account of some kind? What is it they can do to try and protect their asset?
So everything comes down to stress testing, which So Ninder Singh and our discussions have meant that you look at every aspect of your current business and see really what you can do. So so you should look at potentially selling and getting out while the going is somewhat still good. But in this market, you may find that anything that you're trying to sell is not going to sell. It's literally getting to that stage. If you've got 6 month lockdown, the underlying market, even though you've got stamp duty discount, people are still going to be buying. But anything above $500,000 still going to be having stamp duty issues. So it's not really going to be happening as much as you might think.
So whatever the government's doing seems like a cosmetic surgery, isn't that what's happening? Just minor touching up and sort of like trying to fix things. But the underlying problem is there isn't an economy functioning at the moment. There's no money moving around, any money changing hands. So,
I mean,
who's better off? Who's better off in this present time?
Well, the only industry that's growing at the moment are fintech type companies or the food industry, because people have to eat. There's not much happening elsewhere, and especially hospitality, retail. So I think things just based upon the COVID-19 issue are going to be bad enough. But to top it, when interest rates go up, which will have to go up at some stage, it's going to further weaken even fairly strong markets like London. At the moment, I think London, because historically a lot of international organizations or property organizations invest into London. Yeah. So it's being propped up by a lot of international investment. But as time goes on, even London is going to be...
Okay, you mentioned something called fintech. What is fintech then? What is fintech? You mentioned fintech. What is that? Is that something anybody else can get into? Something that any normal person can get into? Is that a way of diverting your money, spreading your risk?
So fintech is a very good thing to get into because it's like a multi-billion pound industry. So fintech would be organizations like Google or Apple, Samsung, and all these organizations like cybersecurity, anything that's actually tech-based and blockchain-based, which is creating a new way of doing something in the financial sector. So it's called financial technology. So in the banking sector, if you've got certain platforms where you can reduce the cost and time of a particular service. So a lot of bridging companies, for example, are using certain platforms to borrow money from, then lend them out with peer lending. So that's a form of fintech. So that industry is potentially huge. So if you pick the right companies, you could be investing 50 or 100,000.
So do you have access to that knowledge, Lakhi Singh? Can you give that knowledge away to your viewers and listeners? Is that part of the services that you offer when you're fixing the problems for companies and properties? Do you give them access or knowledge about where they should invest their money into a finance technology company?
Well, I've been approached by a few fintech companies which are like competitors to TikTok and already have valuations of over $1 billion. And some investors that I know have already invested 100,000, and if when they go into market, they'll be making at least 900,000. So I do have access to those. I'm not an expert on fintech, but I am very well networked. So I like to know a lot about everything that's going on. But my specialism is property tech. But
what is property tech then? What's property tech? You said fintech, now you said property tech. What's property tech?
The prop tech is more the same thing, but in the property field. So, for example, eMove, Yopa, these type of organizations, which no longer exist actually, but they were prop tech organizations coming up with a new type of technology to go into the market to make to try and pick up business.
Like,
so Purple Bricks is a prop tech.
like,
Sorry, like.
okay.
So
like you said, they came into the market, and what's happened to them?
So they haven't succeeded. So you can actually lose money by investing into prop techs and fintechs as well. I have to say, not everything is sort of rosy. So really, if you're an investor, if you've done your due diligence, you understand the market, you understand the potential. They've got a good management team. They've got the right tools. They've got the nice resources, right location, and organizations able to scale up. Then we ourselves actually got our own prop tech, which are LPA properties, which are launching on the 1st of Jan 2021. That's going to be literally hitting a new market where we'll be helping property buyers in a new market to purchase in a different way, using a different algorithm, a different mindset, a bit like TripAdvisor. So that's going to be very exciting, but I don't really want to plug what we're doing. I think these interviews are more to try and edutain people about what Lakhi the Property Fixer is doing, without
edutain. You said
without over edutainment.
Edutainment, right? Okay, so that's a mix of education and entertainment. I like that. And this is one of your own terminologies.
I think I've taken it from somewhere.
Okay, so it's a terminology that you're familiar with.
That's right.
Okay, right. Okay, so we've got the issue of a prop tech and a fintech. We've got other alternative investment tools. We've got other ways for people to put money in. So when the interest rates go up, is it correct? Is this a myth or is it correct that a lot of the money that's lying around in property and in funds associated with property and other investments go back into the stock market, and is that where money then starts flowing? Is that what happens?
I think the general gist of it is that, but you get a lot of startup organizations which have got groundbreaking technology, which haven't gone into the stock market, but they may require private investment or a crowdfund. So we're not talking about millions. There could be hundreds of thousands. So they don't necessarily have to go into the stock market. They could just be investing into small companies which have got a quite simple business.
Yeah. Just use another terminology there, crowdfund. What does that mean? Lots of people standing together looking for some money from a ATM? Is that what it means?
So crowdfunding is a new way of actually raising funding. And so there's different levels of crowdfunding. So you can get funding for a multi-million pound organization looking to raise 100 million. Or you could be looking to raise a couple of 100,000. So there's quite a few platforms out there, such as an organization called Crowdcube, Crowd Property, which does funding for developers. The way it works is people that have got money, they're looking for a regular return. They give the crowdfunding company some money for a return. Return for their money is one way that works, and they just give them standard money and they give them a fixed return, and they may fix their money based upon an asset base. So a lot of
what's the return on that?
Property type platforms work like that. So they give the return at 6 to 10% or 12%. And then once the project's complete, get their money back over a couple of years. And
so how does that work then? How can you put money in for a week, for 2 days? Is it a daily? Is it a spot rate type of thing? Do you have to put it in for a minimum period?
Quite simple. It's a bit like lending money for somebody to do a bridge, but you're doing it to a platform. So they just give you a fixed rate of return. They'll securitize against the assets they're lending to, and they'll get a return from the person that's paying them for borrowing the money. That's more like a bridging type crowdfund. Then you've got more prop tech or fintech type crowdfunders. What they do is they basically present the business model, and they pitch the return based upon the investment profile of that company. So in LPA properties, for example, if you said to them that you're going to get 100% return year on year, people might, put in 50,000, thinking they're going to get £100,000 return on 100% return on whatever funds you're putting in. So you'd be expected to get £50,000 by the end of 2021.
And they can put as much money in as they like and take out all of it whenever they want. Is it a minimum investment? Can you draw down from it? How does it work?
So different platforms or different opportunities have different prerequisites of what they will and won't do. So certain platforms are free, and then they might take a share in the business. Other platforms, they charge a percentage. Other platforms, they say, look, it's a 3-year project, and we're going to be securitizing against assets, and you're going to get a return based upon your investment plus on the asset sale. So there isn't really a fixed formula.
We've got Neil, who says he's invested into PayPal and a fintech company and to Square. And he says he's been getting a good turn so far. So he's made a good bit of money there. So obviously a proof that technology-based type of companies are probably the future. If people got money and they want to invest and they want to make sure that they secure a good return and they don't suffer the madness of the market that we're in, probably a good bet to put money into technology-based companies. Yes, Lakhi, so continue. So you were saying?
Yeah, so I think there are a lot of fintech opportunities there, but the advantage of working in Mayfair is that you've got your ear on the ground. So anything that's cutting edge, I'm actually got my finger on it, a finger on the pulse. So, I mean, I don't really want to disclose too many of the projects that come to me, because I don't really want to be talking about the big numbers. But basically, I get anything from about 20 or 30 companies approaching me per week that want me to help them to raise finance. To the opposite of that is, companies approaching me to help them to raise, let's say billions of pounds as well. And I'm not shy in talking to them and giving them guidance on how they can take themselves to market, because I've become somewhat very integrated in we can sort of say angel investment and hedge fund sort of investment angle into the market. So my team are hugely aware of the sort of infrastructure project finance raising as well. So I'm somewhat blessed to have all these other things there as well that we don't get involved in, but we have knowledge of. So anybody coming to me.
Neil says in investment anyway, only invest disposable income. And I think Sonia at the same time, her comments are only invest that which you can afford to lose. So there is a bit of a caution around investment, because you're putting money into somebody else's pocket and you're not quite sure whether they know their business. But yes, I think a bit of caution is probably due in investments. So only put in what you can afford to lose, and only disposable income, stuff that's lying around that you're not going to find crunches into your day-to-day living if you don't have that money around. Good advice there. Okay, Lakhi, yeah. So you were saying, so you have your finger on the pulse. You're a bit of a mover and a fixer and a shaker within the square mile. So yeah, continue with the fact that you've got $1 billion company businesses coming to you. So have you changed your original business model? Are you now into different type of a lot of people we know, heard of in the city, are getting into commodity broking, going into gold and precious metals and diamonds and stuff. Is that what you're doing now? Is that what you've decided your business is doing now, and you've taken out a lot of your time from standard business to get involved into other areas of business?
The answer is no, I don't get involved in any other projects apart from property. But what happens is if I see a natural match, I've got somebody that wants an investment, then I know somebody that wants to invest because they specialize in that area, then I would actually match them up and I would charge a fee for the service. And then I would set up clear parameters of that working structure so it minimizes my time and any involvement. So I wouldn't say I'm an expert in those areas, but I'm well integrated with those sort of parties because a lot of companies that I'm meaning to work with have multiple interests. So one company I work with, they deal with anything from £2 to £4 million worth of property that they buy and sell regularly in a month. Mm-hmm. And they're involved in developments of that size, but they've got at least 6 to 10 projects like that at any given time. But they've also quite diversified. They've got about 20 other business interests. So in passing, I get to learn a lot about the other business interests, and because I'm quite curious, I like to see really what is going on with the other businesses and see if there's an angle, and if I can refer them business, I can refer them a client, or I can refer them investment. That always bodes well in Mayfair, especially if you've got trusted relationships with certain parties.
Excellent. Okay, so obviously Sonia also says that she's got a business where she's got a rapid increase, I think, of people following her, 300, I think she says. And Neil also says important to take calculated risks when you're putting money down into an investment. So what are the key principles, Lakhi, that people should look at when they're putting their money into somebody else's business, into an investment? What do you give them as a guideline from the fixer to put their money into something, and what to consider?
Okay, there's about 50 things that come to mind. I'll keep it to about 5 or 10 simple ones. So number one, have they got any experience in that industry? Number two, if they have got experience in that industry, have they successfully done something like that before, made profit, and actually delivered to their shareholders? That's always a good start. Third is the business model realistic? If it's an existing market that's already there, there'll probably be some precedence. Is anybody else doing it in the market and they're showing success? And if it's a slightly different from what the other competitors are doing, what's a unique selling point? Other questions that come to mind is how much of a cash burn is there in getting them to profit? So probably the most fundamental point is that there's quite a lot of organizations I know that invest into companies, but one of the first things they ask is, are they already in profit? So your ideal situation if you're investing is that if an organization is already in profit, they're looking for extra capital to scale up, then you're already halfway there in terms of knowing that your investment's going to work. So I would say that's a really good one.
Okay, so being cash fluent is important for an investor, for the property fixer, Lakhi Singh. And Neil Soha says Tanzanite. I think that's probably a commodity that he's referring to for everyone to keep their eye on. Okay, Lakhi Singh, we're coming to the end of today's drive time with you, 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. Thank you so much for your time and giving us your valuable input on alternative investments and alternative way of doing business. We shall speak to you next week again, when we'll have from Monday to Friday, Lakhi Singh, the property fixer. We'll have some callers in and some guests in, and we shall continue the topics for next week with Lakhi Singh, the business property fixer, with the alternative business and properties community with Lakhi Singh, the property fixer. Take care and speak